So we're back working on this 2007 Nissan Titan, and I've got a wheel bearing assembly here, a new one, and it comes with the speed sensor connector on it. It's a World Parts one. Part number, if you're interested. And I've also got the rear wheel speed sensor. That's the part number for it. And this is standard motor products or inner motor. And it comes with a connector on it as well, which looks very similar to this one. Now, I searched high and low for the mating half of this connector here for the front wheel speed sensor, and as near as I can tell, even by looking at the schematic, it does not show a connector. I went to the wrecking yard, the recycling yard, and I checked out 3 or 4 vehicles, and every one of them, the wheel speed sensor wires were cut off. On the right hand side of this vehicle, which doesn't appear to have been touched, there is no connector as well. I'll show you the electrical diagram what I'm talking about. Here's the electrical diagram out of all data, which is an OEM diagram. Here shows the ABS unit, and here are the 4 speed sensors here. The rear speed sensors, which they show a nice digital symbol on, do have connectors on them, but the front speed sensors look like they're hardwired directly to the ABS control unit. There's no connector between the speed sensor and the actual ABS module. So we're gonna, I looked for a mating connector half, but I couldn't find one at the wrecking yard, so I'm just gonna hardwire them. The problem we're gonna have is the polarity is important on these sensors. If you hook it up backwards, the digital sensor will not likely work. It's not like a magnetic pulse generator where the polarity would really theoretically not matter. These ones are 2-wire digital sensors. So we're working on the front wheel left hand, so we're going to have to see if we can figure out which one goes where. See, it says pin 1 at the wheel speed sensor, but there is no pin. It's a gray-orange wire. So I'm going to try it one way and then see if we get a signal out of it, and if we don't, we'll switch the polarity and try it another way, and if that works, then we're golden. So I've got the speed sensor in the back installed. I'm ready to mount it into the backing plate here. Clean this area on the backing plate of rust so that the sensor goes completely in, although the air gap shouldn't affect this one because it's on the side of the sensor. It will affect others. Routed the sensor in the proper orientation and unclipped it up top behind that canister, vapor recovery canister, and in a matter of just putting it in, I'm going to put some dielectric grease on it, and it should go in there just like so. Then we'll hook the scanner up to it and see if it works before we tackle the front one. So I'm getting ready to scan this Titan again. I believe that speed sensor, if you watch the first video, was damaged due to physical contact between the reluctor and the sensor due to a wheel bearing failure. As I said, the wheel bearing had been changed. So we're going to go into the ABS, and this one I believe has VCDS or VDC, and we're going to see if it's got any codes now. I should have 2. Definitely the left front. Key is on, engine's not running. This is slow. Left front, left rear, left front. Okay, so we're going to clear the codes. And I know the left front won't clear because we haven't fixed that yet, but the rear should clear. Then we're going to look at data to make sure the left rear is working now. Wow, this is not quick. Okay, let's try scanning it for codes one more time. Hopefully the left rear code is gone now, so I have the sensor plugged in. Now, some ABS systems won't get rid of the actual codes until it goes through a self-check. So all we have now is the left front wheel speed sensor code. So we're going to look at data one more time. Data. And make sure there's a speed signal on the left rear. right rear was working. Oh, come on, you can do it. More time. Okay. Right rear speed sensor. And rear speed sensor. Rear speed sensor right hand, rear speed sensor left hand. So if I turn the wheels, because it's a standard or because it's a differential, both wheels should turn. I don't have a wheel on, so it's a little difficult. Okay. So that's a good thing. That speed sensor seems to be repaired. So now we'll go ahead and replace the front wheel bearing and hopefully fix the front speed sensor. So there's the left front wheel bearing, hub and bearing assembly off. The reason why I'm changing the whole hub and bearing is because the speed sensor was over $300, but the wheel bearing is only $220, and it comes with the speed sensor, so oftentimes it doesn't come out. Now, as I said, there's no connector up here. It looks like it's hardwired. So the other thing I noticed is this wheel bearing appears to have been replaced before. So I'm wondering if somebody replaced it, and when they hardwired it, you know, they spliced in the wires here. I wonder if they got the polarity wrong. I mean, the connection doesn't look great, but it hadn't failed completely. And as I said, this is not a magnetic pulse generator. It's a two-wire digital sensor. And so the polarity is definitely essential or it won't work. So we're going to clean up this bearing surface here. As I said, hang the caliper so it doesn't hang on the hose. The 3 bolts that hold it in have 21 millimeters heads, and the axle nut is 32 millimeters. We'll find out what the torque is when we're putting it back together. So I've cut the connector off and stripped back the wires, and I'm going to join it up here where it doesn't move. Now I'm going to try white to white and black to black. That would logically make sense. We'll see if that works, but I'm just going to temporarily connect it and see if the speed sensor code goes away and the speed sensor actually works before I permanently connect it with solder and heat shrink. Okay, so I got the speed sensor wires hooked up. Should still have the left front speed sensor code. Key is on. Okay, I'm going to clear it. You would think I would have went to history, but maybe that's not. Maybe that's active and history codes. It doesn't differentiate. So if it clears and we got a speed signal, we're going to solder up the terminals. Let's try it again. Come on, you can do it. You would think white would go with white and black would go with black. Let's see if we got any data from that speed sensor. And it is possible the wire is compromised somewhere else. Come on, you can do it. Front right hand, front left hand sensor. Let's spin the wheel. No signal. Well, we're going to switch the wires around or check to see if we got power on one of those wires. Damn, that sucks. Okay, well, it turns out there was another splice about 4 inches up the damn harness that I didn't see. Anyways, that was corroded, so that's probably all that was wrong in the first place, was that corroded splice. But definitely that wheel bearing's been changed, and somebody spliced the wires, so now I'm going to see if the codes are present, if I can clear the codes. Okay, still there. Clear codes. Yes. There were 2 splices in this stupid harness, about 6 inches apart. And one was up on the inside of the fender and I didn't see it. I wondered why the factory wires were, you know, they were green and orange and brown and white, yet the wires I was working with were black and white. Okay, let's see if the code came back. Survey says, man, this thing is slow. Slow to read code, slow to clear code, slow to look at data. No codes present. That's a good sign. So let's have a look at the speed sensor now and see if we got a signal from the left front. Then I'll solder those connections together and heat shrink them. I put individual heat shrink over the connections, and I'm going to put one piece of heat shrink over the entire repair area. Hopefully that keeps Mother Nature out of there. Front left-hand sensor, and we're spinning the wheel right now. That's a beautiful thing. Okay, so it works. We'll put it back together. I got to look up the torque on that axle nut. Well, if you watched the first video in this series, this brake line was rusted out and leaking right at this clip on the differential housing. So I made up new rear brake lines, both sides. It was a bit of a challenge because it has this air ride load leveling set kit, and there's a bracket that goes over top of the brake line. You can see the brake line in there. So it's a bit of a challenge. You can't get your fingers in there to turn that line. But I managed with an open end wrench and then a crow foot to tighten the fitting up. Now we just got to pressure bleed the brakes, and hopefully the brake warning light will be off now. So we got the ABS light off, the traction control light off. We still have the airbag light on, indicating there's an airbag fault. He knows about that. He's elected not to fix it this time. And the four-wheel drive is working, it appears. I tried it on the hoist. There's the indicator beside the odometer. It's in 4 high. Now it's in 2 high. So we'll take it for a road test and hopefully everything's okay.